So my part of this Dave Hill Crane Song plugin event thing is going to be about this baby. This is the Peacock vinyl emulation. Now, it has to be said at this point that I am using the AAX DSP version, not the native version, but both are available and they both sound just as good. That's the whole benefit of using AAX. But I'm using the DSP version because I have an HDX card. So, that out of the way, let's have a quick chat about this bad boy, the Peacock. So, Peacock is kind of vinyl emulation, not down to as much as psk, psk, psk. There are plenty of plugins that do that whole kind of vinyl retro sound thing. What the Peacock is doing is actually reproducing the distortion and the harmonics and the colour that come out of a vinyl reproduced audio file. So what have we got? There are three main controls to the Peacock. We've got the harmonic, the dynamic control, output trim is kind of exactly that, dither on and off, but we've got the most important one over here. This is the colour. To get into the nitty-gritty of what this is actually doing, the harmonic and the dynamic controls kind of interact together to control the amount of coloration and harmonic distortion. The colour setting is, if you like, the tone of that vinyl emulation and of that colour. So gold setting is effectively the best, the gold standard. Silver is supposed to be the cleanest and most transparent, and they get more and more juicy and more beefy and more saturated stroke distorted as you increase the setting. So through gold, rich, fat into deep. So what I've got are three audio examples of how I've used and how I think you could use the Peacock vinyl emulation plugin. And the first one is on a basic bass guitar audio file. So let me just play that back for you. I'll bypass it first. I'll bring the harmonic distortion down and the dynamic down. And then I'll juice it in slowly. This is in gold mode, the kind of de facto standard mode. So you can hear at that sort of level, at gold, in the gold setting, we starting to get a bit of warmth, bit of richness, little bit of harmonic overtones. We could almost call it distortion, but it's not quite distortion. Let me knock it back to silver. Now, to say it's subtle at gold and silver levels, I think is an understatement. It's a very, very gentle effect, but it is about coloration. It's about adding character to the sound. Even as I'm saying this, I'm kind of gesticulating with my hands, something chronic, because it's a very kind of organic thing that it's adding to this bass part. With these very high harmonic and dynamic settings, if I now go through silver, gold, rich, fat, and deep, you'll really hear it start to kick in. Silver mode. There's rich, you can really hear it's pushing now. See, I really like fat and deep mode, but used with a lot less harmonic and a lot less dynamic setting. So that's it used on a bass guitar, a naked bass guitar. Now there's one more setting in here, the dither control, which Dave suggests you only use if you're using it on a stereo master channel or on a bus channel, because you're then dithering down to 16-bit. But at the moment, I'm not, because it's used on a single instrument channel. So let's try it actually on a stereo mix. So this is a track I worked on with Rex Strother, and it's a kind of jazz ballad, piano, brushes, bass, really nice, gentle kind of song. The vocals are quite up front, so I just want to warm it up a little bit. I'm going to use Peacock just for that, just to give me some kind of vinyl loveliness, some vinyl ooze, if you like. So let's have a listen to that. Bypass to start with.
The love that we knew disappeared after all. It left like the leaves leave the trees in the fall. And I ask myself, does it matter at all? No, no, no. Life was fun.
See, I think for that, using any of the higher settings, fat or deep, is just too much. I think rich is probably as far as you can go. Let's jump in a little bit further.
No, no, no. Only, always. The way it began, life was fun. I was free. You came along, made a slave out of me.
If you push too hard, you start to get kind of a little bit of breakup, a little bit distortion, which you don't necessarily want that. All I want to do is give the track the effect of that kind of vinyl loveliness, vinyl playback. I don't want to get too far down the saturation or distortion route. I mean, obviously, whenever you're adding harmonics, you are effectively adding a kind of distortion, but I think that's just really nice set between gold and rich. It's just nice. It's adding a little bit of warmth, a few extra overtones, a few extra harmonics, just filling in the gaps in the digital almost. So the last example I've got is on a full drum mix, and you can see here's my settings. Let me just solo out the drums. And again, you could go for the very gentle, just warming it up slightly. But I think for this particular track, there's an awful lot of reverb, and it's got kind of a very big drum sound. So I think warming up that reverb with a bit of vinyl is going to sound really, really nice. And you'll hear exactly what I mean. I'll bypass it first, then I'll kick in the fat setting so you really hear it go for it. It's on my drum bus, and I've also got an SSL compressor and Avid limiter on there. But let's just hear the difference this setting makes. Bypass now. Having a really good effect on the kind of that big 80s kind of snare drum sound, and it's warming up the kick drum just nicely. I'll let the track run through. Got to be careful with this though, because on the hi-hats, too much harmonic distortion and too much of the dynamic setting can really cause problems with a kind of a distorted sizzle. Let me try and find the hi-hats quickly. I think that's in about here somewhere. If I push these too far, not nice when you push them too far for the hi-hats. I think that sounds absolutely awesome on a drum master bus. It's really doing a nice job. Those toms now sound much broader, almost much fatter. It's not a terribly thirsty plugin. It's also not a terribly expensive plugin, which is quite nice. But I don't know of anyone else who knows their digital audio onions quite as much as Dave Hill does. He's a lovely chap. He's a great bloke to talk to. He's always at the trade shows in the UK and the US and around the world. He's just one of those guys you can chat to for hours, but be careful because the guy is super, super smart and you can be left behind very, very quickly.